We have just learned of 2 new attacks on U.S. forces in Syria, this time with rockets and drones. This means at least 4 attacks now in the past 36 hours. The first of the attacks was on a U.S. base by a suspected Iranian drone, killing 1 American contractor, wounding another, and injuring 5 U.S. service members as well. The U.S. has launched airstrikes in retaliation in response to those first attacks. We're just learning of these additional attacks tonight. Air Force F-15 fighter jets taking to the skies, destroying 2 Iranian-aligned facilities. U.S. intelligence saying the first deadly attack on U.S. forces was conducted by a one-way attack drone made in Iran. One of the 2 most recent ones also using drones. President Biden, who authorized the retaliatory airstrike, saying just a short time ago that the U.S. does not seek conflict with Iran, but is prepared to, quote, act forcefully to protect our people. Word at least 1 U.S. service member has been injured in these newest attacks tonight.
Tonight, 4 separate attacks on U.S. forces in Syria in 36 hours, one of them deadly. In response, U.S. F-15s destroying 2 Iranian-aligned training and equipment facilities in Syria.
To make no mistake, the United States does not emphasize seek conflict with Iran, but be prepared for us to act forcefully, protect our people. That's exactly what happened last night.
It was 6:38 a.m. Eastern time on Thursday when an explosive-laden Iranian drone came hurtling down on the U.S. base in northeast Syria, leaving 1 American contractor dead, 1 wounded, and 5 U.S. service members injured as well. 4 of the Americans medically evacuated. Central Command immediately planning counterstrikes. And just hours later, President Biden aboard Air Force One, authorizing the retaliatory attacks, sending 2 F-15s into the air and hitting their targets. There are currently 900 American service members and hundreds more contractors in Syria as part of a counter-ISIS force. The attacks against those forces by these Iranian-backed proxies have been relentless. Nearly 80 rocket or drone attacks in the last 2 years. This is the first time the U.S. has hit targets in Syria since August, and the first time an American has been killed in Syria in a drone attack.
Throughout the morning, we've had various guests come on and talk about how weakness has invited these types of attacks. Congressman Michael Waltz just referenced, he tweeted a chart yesterday, Dan. I don't know if you saw it, but it shows the number of rocket attacks from Iranian and Iranian-affiliated forces over the last several years. You can see the spike. It's not hard to see the correlation. What are your thoughts when we see this news this morning and the environment that has created that spike?
I got a lot to say. Let me just say first, pray that the Lord God give those folks in Mississippi the strength to deal with the incredible obstacles ahead after that deadly tornado. Here's where I'm confused, Will. You know, I come from the world of reason. That's what conservatives do, right? Does a policy work or does it not? Has it been tried in the past, and what were the results? So in the world of reason, I look for, spreadsheet type results. Here are the inputs, give me the outputs. So you're trying to tell me, like the military strategists and a lot of these political folks, you're trying to tell me that you have less than 1,000 troops in the region to prevent the, quote, reconstitution of ISIS, while you just abandoned Afghanistan and billions of dollars of military equipment while you were there to supposedly prevent the reconstitution of al-Qaeda. Can everybody just digest that for a minute and explain to me in what world that makes sense? So you abandoned an entire country after a decade of war, probably $1 trillion in net assets given there over time and opportunity costs, right? Countless deaths. You forfeit the whole country. You give them one of the world's biggest armies and billions of equipment. And now you're telling me we're in Syria, and you've got people on both the Republican and Democrat side who want to escalate this fight. You want to escalate now in the Middle East while escalating in Ukraine, while simultaneously preparing in a half-assed way for an invasion over the Strait in Taiwan. And that makes sense to you. With a nuclear power, that makes perfect. You're sitting at a table going, yeah, sure, we can do all this. Explain this to me, too, using reason. You've got the Biden administration that goes over and, by the way, humiliates the Saudis. We have to deal with a lot of bad actors around the world. So you've got this rotting bag of oatmeal in the White House who on one hand is saying, hey, listen, you Saudis really suck. Let me give you a fist bump and get humiliated. Saudis, the only natural, real counterweight over there outside of Israel to the Iranian death to America people, and you insult them too. So Iran and Syria is such a dangerous problem for us. We have a natural counterweight in the Saudis, in this kind of Sunni Shia generational rivalry they got going, this Hatfields and McCoys for the generation, and we crap on both of them. And again, you're at a table going, makes perfect sense. Guys, I'm sorry, I live in the real world. You cannot alienate the Saudis, wokeify our military, cut our Navy short of the ships they need, miss recruiting budgets for our army, fight a war in Ukraine, fight a war in China, fight a war in Africa, fight a war in Europe. You can't do this all at the same time. Now, let's defend Poland. Let's defend NATO. Let's defend Syria. We're $30 trillion in debt and we can't even defend our own freaking border down south?
Yeah.
Please tell me in what world any of this makes sense. I'm baffled. You know who's laughing right now? Putin. There is nothing Putin and Xi want more right now than the United States distracted in the Middle East. This is what they want. It serves two purposes. It keeps us militarily distracted and also enriches the petro states and fills their coffers with money we're sending overseas to buy petrochemicals we have right here. This is just national suicide, man.
Tornadoes on the ground to a meteor. The U.S. had some wild conditions this week.
Dramatic weather scenes in the U.S. this week. A tornado ripped through Montebello in Southern California.
The roof is flying up. Sheesh.
Damaging multiple buildings and injuring at least 2 people.
What the hell is going on?
The National Weather Service said the tornado was the strongest to impact the Los Angeles metro area since 1983. Meanwhile, much of California remains underwater after days of heavy rain and flooding. Meanwhile, residents in South Dakota were also treated to a star show, but blink and you'll miss it. A meteor lit up the sky above Watertown in the early hours of Thursday morning.
We begin here this morning with the news breaking overnight, a string of deadly storms that swept across the southeast. At least 24 people were killed in Mississippi when a tornado touched down just after sundown. Mississippi's governor says search and rescue operations are underway and that emergency crews are surging to the areas hardest hit by the storm. But getting a clear picture of just how damaging the storm is won't come until daylight.
We knew that we were getting close to where the tornado hit because it was getting pitch black. And many of the communities where the tornado did hit, they are without power. We brought generators so you're able to see what we are able to see. And this is what we're seeing. Homes like this behind me here, missing their roof. Just next to it, cars have been spun around and wood smashed through the vehicles. We're starting to see downed trees, power lines that are splintered, and we're expecting it to get much worse when the sun comes up.
Tornado! Right there, right?
Massive tornado!
Just before 8 o'clock Friday night, a storm system ripped through Mississippi, producing a tornado that touched down, causing catastrophic damage to communities across the state. In Rolling Fork, Mississippi, around 60 miles northwest of Jackson, what were once buildings are now piles of scattered debris. The twister moved northeast, devastating other rural communities. Officials are pleading for help. The deadly twisters come on the heels of damaging storms on Thursday and Friday. In southern Missouri, a car with 6 teenagers inside was swept away by floodwaters. 2 did not survive. And at least 2 tornadoes swept through North Texas Friday morning with winds of 100 miles per hour. Eric Huntley dug through what was left of his home.
As soon as I got the alert, I went to go look outside. And then I heard the moan. And I'll never forget that sound.
All right, joining us on the phone right now, Zachary Hall. He's a professional storm chaser who was able to view the destruction in Mississippi firsthand. Zachary, you're in Rolling Fork right now. Describe what you're seeing.
I'm looking at pure destruction. Vehicles tossed, trees completely debarked. I'm actually staring right at an American flag in the middle of, I'm not sure what this used to be. It's complete rubble now, but it's just apocalyptic, I guess is the best way to describe what I'm seeing.
You seeing people who, you know, are emerging from rubble, who survived this, who are assessing their losses. What are you seeing in terms of human life?
Well, most of the response here is local, local first responders, locals, family members here to help. We were actually here last night and observed the tornado come into town, and we were the first on scene. So we observed the emergence from the rubble and that sort of thing last night. I know that there are still some people who are not accounted for, unfortunately. Right now, a lot of it is just trying to help people clean up, get things out of their home that they need. Like I said earlier, there's vehicles on top of homes, things tossed miles. It's just, it's crazy.
And we're looking at what appears to be drone footage right now, and you're right, it is just apocalyptic.
It looks like a war zone over here.
An entire roadside of homes and businesses off of Highway 61 are just gone.
And as you can see, no one has a home here.
After Rolling Fork, Mississippi took a direct hit from a deadly tornado. And in this small town, residents lost a lot more than their buildings.
Because we had to help dead bodies out of the house. So that is very disturbing. Like actually seeing people losing their lives over a bad weather like this, that is not nothing happy.
Survivors like Shanta Howard say it was a fight for their life when the tornado hit.
What's going through my head? Lord, I don't want to die.
Why does God